relógio já passou dos 49 prometidos pelo árbitro. Cai a chuva. Que tensão. Cobrança de escanteio. Alisson! Alisson! Gol!
Good evening, everybody. You're listening to Pass&Move, the Liverpool podcast. We've been away for a couple of weeks, and what a couple of weeks it's been. We've already had an international break. We've had an international layoff. We've had an international legacy. We've had a lost weekend, and some of us even ended up in Stamford Bridge. Don't ask more about that. But we're going to take a look back at the last 2.5 weeks in the life of Liverpool Football Club. It's been a tumultuous couple of weeks. There have been highs, there have been lows, there have been injuries. And yes, there was West Ham. I'm joined tonight by Matt, producer Matt at the helm. How are you, my friend?
Very good.
Matt waving to the camera there, which is really good on an audio podcast, but we will go with it. We're joined by a man whose stools have returned to the colour brown from the colour black as he's returned from Ireland. And the Guinness has finally left his system. Austin Callahan returns to Liverpool. Good evening, Austin.
Good evening, chaps. Glad to be back.
We have Manny over there from the States, who's not on the Manhattans this week and is in fact on the hard drugs delivered direct to the arm, I believe, Manny.
That's right. Hopefully now I'm more in tune with our stats now that I've got direct access to the internet through the COVID booster shot I got earlier today.
Yeah, the aerial pops straight out of your ear when you least expect it. So, keep an eye out for that. And finally, we're joined by James down there somewhere on the west of London, I believe. How are you, James?
Not too bad, thanks. Good evening, all.
Right. It's been a bit of a couple of weeks, hasn't it? Let's get the other bits out of the way. Pass&Move is a 365 radio production, and it will often contain sweary bits. These are absolutely fucking necessities for the production of the show and to get the fucking points across that we want you to fucking understand in the right fucking tense and terminology. So if that's all fucked you off, you know where the off switch is. Right, we're going to start with way back in the mists of time. Who remembers the Carabao Cup when Preston, the mighty Preston North End, took on, in fact, it was the Bill Shankly derby, took on Liverpool? Manny, tell us all about it.
I'd love to tell about this one, but unfortunately, I totally forgot the game was on.
This is the kind of professional content that people subscribe for.
You're absolutely right. Well,
That's okay.
it was an interesting game. If you look at the lineup that we actually put out on the night, there are a couple of confusing things. I know it seems a long time ago now, but we started with Adrian, a back four of Tsimikas, Gomez, Matip, which was the big surprise for me. Nico Williams, who I thought on the night had probably one of his best games in a Liverpool shirt as well. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Tyler Morton, Curtis Jones, Minamino, Big Divvy, and Young Blair up top. It was an interesting side. Divock Origi did everything to prove he wasn't a footballer until he came up with the most ridiculous goal I've seen in many a year to win it, which is a bit Divvy shtick, James, really, isn't it? It's what he does.
Yeah. It's what makes him a cult hero, not a legend. But,
sorry, what hero? Oh, cult. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that for
the PG version. Yeah, I mean it was a bit of a grind, but we eventually got there. And like you say, Nico was great. He set up both goals. Man of the match, probably his best performance. But yeah, a total slog. But some good performances from the kids. You know, Morton was great again.
Yeah.
And Bradley.
Yeah.
Minamino loves the Carabao Cup. And Origi's just a nuisance that just as you're prepared to sell him, suddenly pulls something out of his back pocket.
Well, literally out of his back pocket, an overhead reverse I don't know what you call it. What would you describe that as, Matt? An overhead reverse back flick? What would you? I've got no idea how to describe that.
It's a backwards scorpion kick.
Backward, that's very good. Backward scorpion kick.
Breakdance move.
It's
Harry Maguire.
From his days in the hood.
Yeah, man.
It is strange, though, isn't it, chaps? That just when you're watching Big Divvy and he does something like that, and this is one of those sweary bits coming up, that you have to sit there and look at the television and go, "Oh, fuck off." How have you managed?
Just when you thought it was safe to hate someone.
Yeah, well, how have you managed that? You know, and but still, no one wants to buy him.
No. Well, Newcastle might, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Yeah, I think they're too busy watching the entirety of his play. He'll come up with a brilliant goal and then, play a long bit where he doesn't make a single pass. His touch is off. He's not hustling back. He's not playing defense from the front, and then he'll score a goal and kind of make you forget all the bad parts.
I personally hope we don't sell him till at least the end of the season, because with the boys going off the African nations in the new year, I think he could.
Yeah, well, you're quite right, Austin. We need a figurehead that we could abuse, shout at, and get frustrated at, and wish that the others were back. Absolutely right.
Even just to come off the bench, it's just I think he could play. He could be pivotal in the month of January, especially in the likes of the FA Cup and all that. So I'm not a fan, but I think I don't want rid of him.
You have to love him. I think it's an unwritten law that for the moments he's had against Dinosaur Arms, and of course scoring the decisive goal in the Champions League final, he'll always be loved. But come on, he's well past his sell-by date as far as the Liverpool player is concerned.
I say he's our Ole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he can come back and manage us when we're desperate in about 20 years' time, can't he? Yeah. When we're looking back at the halcyon days of that German guy who had his eyes fixed. It was an interesting game all round, really. But let's we moved on. We have Leicester in the next round. To be honest, whose initial thought, like mine, was, well, that's that over and done with then.
I thought that was the best tie we could have got, to be honest.
I agree, actually, if I'm honest. I did think that the side we're likely to put out against the side that Brendan will desperately cobble together and stick out. I can't see Brendan going for resting players in that. He needs something on his side. Obviously, it's going to get tough. We've got a lot of games coming up as well. But we've made the quarterfinals. It's I think that's the furthest we've been for some time, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, and I think the key thing there, we've already qualified for Europe, so I wouldn't be surprised that we've got a strongest side out there as well, because you're only 2 games away from Wembley.
And of course, the perennial Carabao Cup completists are no longer in it. Another victim of West Ham United. Of course, all praise to Matt. His other team coming up trumps there.
It's a win-win for me.
They've had a bit of that, but their podcast is a bit more lively. Yes, it was a strange game. It's a strange competition. But there's not a lot left in it, really, is there now?
No, I mean, obviously, we will go out to Leicester. It's just what we do. We'll probably play the kids again. And like you say, Brendan will go full strength and that'll be the end of that. But it was just a surprise, really.
I think, James, he will put, because we're that close to getting to Wembley for first time since he came here, I think Klopp will play a strongest team.
Austin, we're going to frame that clip now, right? Because I don't think there's one of us sat around you in this conference, right, who agrees with a word of that. I really we will go out playing a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds, in my opinion, and you can frame mine and reverse it up the other way. I don't think Jurgen Klopp gives a flying shit about this competition. I think it's an annoyance, and he views it purely and simply as just a way to give some other players some game time.
We shall see.
But unfortunately, we don't have many players left that aren't getting game time at the moment, but we'll come on to that later. It was an interesting result. Minamino popped up, scored a goal, and was quite tidy all around. it's difficult to find where Minamino's level is because it should be beyond Preston. It's obviously well beyond Manchester United, but it's hard to find out where he's actually going to fit in. But obviously, with the injury that we picked up a couple of weekends ago, it looks like we might find out. So let's move on to the most perplexing game of the season, and I'm going to hand the baton over to my American friend, who can rant and rave and tell us just how bad the experience was of Liverpool 2, Brighton 2. Manny.
Yeah, so I think the real painful part for me in this match was after our first 2 goals, you're looking at that going, it's going to be 7 or 8 before this is over. We are totally dominating that game. And then all of a sudden, we're the absolute worst side, can't win attack, can't, failing every challenge, every duel, can't control the pace of the game. We're just letting Brighton come on. And I think the more you watch that match, if there's anyone alive who thought Liverpool were going to win that and Brighton weren't going to tie it, or in fact that Brighton weren't going to be the ones who would steal it 3-2, you'd have to be on crack for crying out loud. It was pretty abject second half from us. It's people's heads seem to go, like their positioning goes right out the window sometimes. Their first goal was, what are you going to do? Was a great shot. It almost looks like a cross, but where it ended up hitting it, that definitely looks intentional. And I don't know how you stop that one from going in, but it seemed like once that goal went in, our heads went out the window, right? We had that disallowed goal for Mane. Actually, I would say even that's probably where it all changed, right? That disallowed goal for Mane. And I feel like people just took their foot off the gas. They're like, this one's in the bag, right? We're dominating this so much, we can ease up much like we did with United. And I think in doing so, the game just slipped out of our hands and we can never wrestle it back.
I'm going to give that rebuttal to Matt because you had some quite strong points on the day. I know it was a while back, Matt, and I know it was in the Facebook thread, but you started off with the point of let's be honest, Brighton are a good team.
Yeah, we're allowed to draw a match. We're also allowed to lose a match as well. I mean, heaven forbid. Can't wait for the West Ham one.
Yeah. So let me just say, let me speak to Brighton being a good side, right? Because their prior 5 matches before us were 4 draws and a loss. A loss to City, a draw to Palace, a draw to Arsenal, a draw to Norwich, and a draw to Leicester. I mean, a powerhouse side if I've ever heard of one when you're trying to win the league.
Manny, they were 4th.
That shows you how bad the rest of the league is beyond us.
No.
Bring credit where credit's due. They're there on merit.
Bullshit excuse. They were 4th on merit. Right,
in their last 5 matches, they had 4 goals. This is not a side that should be coming and beating us at home.
Have you actually watched them play?
Right, I have, and still on this. It doesn't matter how well they play. Here's the results. You can't lie with the facts. I'm going to pull a rack of facts. Here's the facts. In 5 games, they scored 4 goals. They drew and lost to their last 5 opponents, and somehow to us, they can come back from 2-0 while being dominated and win at Anfield.
You could flip that, Manny, and say in 5 games they lost 1.
Right, and that's what we would call rose-tinted specs. That's putting you put lipstick on a pig, but you still got a pig.
Unfortunately, that's also a raff of facts just delivered from a perspective you don't particularly like.
Yep.
Matt, back to you, my friend.
No, I'm just saying that they are a good team. They were 4th on merit. It's not like they're like a sort of thrown together, bunch of people. He's a really, really good coach.
Yeah.
And
anybody know what their result after us was?
I don't care.
What do you mean? Of course you don't care, because it obviously proves my point. The very next match they drew to who? Who did they draw to again? Fucking Newcastle, the worst team in the league.
It's not about proving points, Manny. It's a 38-game season. 38 games, and you're losing your shit over 1 game.
Well, no, there's more to come.
Oh, well, there's another one you can lose your shit over even more.
Yeah.
I lost my shit over the not beating Chelsea at home with an extra man for a whole half. I lost my shit drawing to City after being up, and I lost my shit over the West Ham match. There's plenty. I'm not talking about a match on its own. I'm talking about if we want to win the league, these aren't the types of games we could be dropping points in.
Oh my God, it's almost like you've only experienced 1 league campaign where we've actually won.
You're trying to say based on us winning one league out of 30 that we're bound to win this one because we're just deserve it.
It's going to go to the wire this year. There's going to be teams taking points of each other, as has been proved so far. Like, City have lost twice, I believe. Chelsea have only lost once, but they've drawn less than us. So it's they could have lost on Saturday again against Burnley. Burnley were unlucky not to get
my point of this is we drew to Brighton, and regardless of where they end up, and it will be mid-table in my opinion, but upper mid-table, but regardless of where they end up, you have to take the word that Austin said in there, which is merit. That when we played them, they were fourth. And when we get later on in the podcast, the team that we lost to were fourth. It's unfortunate that we're playing those teams when they're on the crux of their form, right? I think Adam Lallana in that game played better than he did for his last complete, how many handful of made of crisp performances he managed for us. But he looked a better player in that Brighton game than he did for a long time as a Liverpool player. I have to agree with Matt. I think Graham Potter's a very, very, very good coach.
I'll steal a line that everybody likes to use on me. They're fourth as of October. I've seen Blackpool fourth as of October. I've seen Reading fourth as of October. I've seen Wigan fourth as of October. And if you think those sides were sides we should have won, should not have beaten at home, then your argument holds water.
Blackpool beat us at home.
You're missing the point. I do think we should have won. I just don't think there's any shame. Unfortunately, not shame, it's disappointing, but there's no shame in drawing the game to a team that on the day were, in my opinion, the better side.
Yeah, I'm not saying there should be shame. What I'm saying is there's clearly gaps in being able to stay focused and keep the plan moving forward in matches where we take the lead, right? So obviously we will lose games.
We go 2-0 up chasing the league in April against them at home. They ain't coming back. But that's the way it is now. There's the first, they've got their tails up, they're fourth, they're confident, and that showed on the Saturday against. I only seen the first half. They could have been 1 or 2-0 up in the first 10 minutes. Only but Alisson saved, I think they saved the post. So they've got their tails up. They're on a good run. But as Moose said, come the back end of the season, if we had met them when we were chasing the league, they wouldn't 2-0 up. We probably would wipe the floor 5-0 with them.
All right. So I'm the crazy one. Team is fine. No gaps in how we play in the setup. Everything's going to be fine. Change nothing. Got it. Loud and clear. We're gonna win the league because nothing needs to change.
I'm gonna, because I look at that midfield and unsurprisingly, well, shockingly, I should say, really shockingly, Naby Keita didn't finish the game. I know we were all shocked, and our midfield wasn't good enough. And I think for the last 5 games, we've got there by string of fortunate things, and by pure sheer will and determination in others. But the last 4 or 5 games, due to injury, and as much as Romy Patel, if he's listening, is going to love this. Due to the lack of not replacing a particular player, where last year's defensive crisis was clear and obvious. We have got a midfield crisis, and we'll talk about that when we've done the games review, but we do have a problem. We do have a problem in the middle of the park, and that is that below the top 3, they're just not good enough. They're not fit enough, they're not reliable enough, and they're not good enough. So I would like, anybody else got anything else on Brighton? I thought Brighton was superb.
Yeah, I would agree with everyone really, because the fact with football is there are key moments in games which turn games, but you can't then take those moments and say, well, that's how it's going to be for the rest of the season. That's not how football works. Brighton were good, they deserved a point, but Manny's right that it wasn't after the Mane one, it was more after the Salah goal immediately after half time. Our heads just fell off. We just sort of went, oh, fuck it. We've had 2 goals ruled out. That'll do. And we just stopped. And Keita going out was a key moment in that game. It changed the way it was all played. And our midfield looks paper thin, and it does seem that each season we're going to have an issue in each department. And this season it's the midfield.
I totally agree. I thought they were superb in the game. I actually thought we were lucky to get away with Trossard's winner. It was quite borderline. You could easily, in the old days, pre the red lines, blue lines, and stupid fucking television screens, that'd have been given. And I honestly would have sat there and thought they probably would have deserved it on the day as well. Because I do agree with you, Manny. I just don't agree with the ire involved in it. I don't think on that day there was any shame in losing to what or if we'd lost. There was no shame in drawing. But there certainly wouldn't have been any shame in losing to what was, after 25 minutes for the rest of the game, the better team.
The frustration for me is we had our foot on their throats, right? It wasn't like it was an evenly contested match from the start. We played Brighton off the park in those first few minutes. They had an early shot, yes. But then after that, they barely got a sniff of the ball. We moved the ball really well. We had 2 quick goals. We had another one disallowed. Going into that half, if it wasn't for that late goal, they would have had nothing for themselves in that first half. Then in the second half, our heads completely fell off. We let them grow full of confidence, and we never once wrestled the match back. And when you think back to our league-winning season, the one thing that I thought we did better than any team I've ever seen play is we never let a game get wrestled away from us, right? Even if was it the Villa game where Mane gets a very late header at the end of the game where you're kind of almost resigned to the draw and we steal that one away, right? There was so many, the Everton game where we steal it right at the end and we always fought back to get all 3 points or at least earn the draw. I felt like this is the opposite of what we were doing. And we've got the game in hand and we're letting it escape away, right? We had the City game in hand. We let it get out. And we had the Brentford game. We just let the game managed us, not us managing the game.
I would
let things get out of hand.
I would have to disagree with City. I don't think you can ever say you've got a game against Manchester City in hand. I mean, Matt was at the game and obviously saw it as two sides being fairly equal. I saw it as City bossed us a bit really and got us, not bossed us in dominated, but just got us to play the game. They just got us to play the game at their pace.
Especially, we came out, we were a different team in the second half. That was a game of 2 halves.
Definitely. But if you look at Brighton, the thing I admired about Brighton, and I'm going to focus on Brighton's positives, is I don't like it. I don't like losing to a team where we get out fought, and we'll come on to that later. But that's what happened with Brentford as well. We were out muscled, and we were bullied at Brentford. And you'd have thought that if we can take on Atletico Mints and not be out bullied, you shouldn't be worried about taking on anybody. But I thought Brighton came out and were one of the very few sides who decided, fuck it, let's go toe to toe with this lot. And I thought they were excellent, absolutely excellent.
That's a really good point that some of the journalists picked up, was that Brighton were one of the few teams that had the guts to say, let's just go at Liverpool. That's what they fear the most. Very few teams have the guts to do it, and they went for it because teams like Brighton and West Ham, they've got nothing to lose, so they might as well go for it. And when they do that, it scares us. You know,
I don't think it scares; it surprises us because you think. I think now the play. Not surprises us, but I think the players probably got in the mentality, to come to Anfield, they're going to lie down, they're going to let's play our fucking game. And then once people are in their faces, like, whoa, what the fuck?
Well, Matt,
I think you make a great point, James, that other teams get to play with the freedom of, if we lose, we lose. There's no shame in losing to Liverpool, especially at Anfield, right? So you kind of have the freedom to go for it without, we, on the other hand, have the pressure of saying the game's getting a little out of our control. We can't lose this or drop the points at home. So, that does affect what's going on in the players' minds.
You come back to the stats involved in that, Mr. Manny. We had 3 shots on target. They had 6.
Yep. I think the key stat from that match in duels, we had a 42% win and they had about 58%, right? So they were really fighting to get all those first and second balls away from us, and particularly in the second half. I
would also say that's because we had a bunch of pussies in midfield as well. That's on that particular day as well. And the captain's not playing particularly well at the moment, but he's still one of the only fit midfielders we've got. So that's there. Okay, Liverpool 2, Brighton 2. An underwhelming result, but I think a little bit understandable considering the quality of the opposition at that particular moment. I'm going to caveat that for Manny, so I can say at that particular moment. So Brighton will go and lose 8-0 and he'll be standing going, fucking look at that, I told you, and in weeks to come.
We're going to see as the season rolls out if I'm proven right or wrong.
But that doesn't matter. That completely proves the point, Manny.
Exactly.
As of opening day, Arsenal is in first alphabetical.
All right, you can read my mind.
Well, we deserve to lose to them because they're in fucking first.
Manny,
With their table and where we are at that time.
In the words of our famous high-pitched friend, let him speak, Matt. Matt.
I'm just saying you're saying exactly what I'm saying. It's the 38-game season. There are teams that will peak and trough. There are teams that will level out. At the moment, we're on 2-point-something points per game.
Yeah, it's going to go mad over Christmas. The points dropped all over the place.
You can't really say anything until we get to Christmas as to who's even going to remotely be in the running for the league. At the moment, it's 3 teams.
As Alan Hansen used to say, he said, you don't look at the table until 12 games in.
Yeah,
one more to go.
Fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point.
But I think, the one we have to contend with is. Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Go on, Manny.
I'm going to say the one thing we have to contest with is the two sides we're trying to compete against have a much deeper bench, much deeper pockets, right? So injury crises for them are going to be a little bit different than they are for us, right? So our injured midfield is going to be a problem for us because we just don't have that depth in squad that they have, and we also don't have the pockets to bring the money to spend out on big buys in January like they can. So,
okay, let's move on because it was a 2-2 draw. And we've started with the 2-0 win because it's a little bit back in the midst of time. And it was only Preston. We've been a little bit discerning over, and then we had Brighton, which we all a bit about on the day. Now let's talk about one of the greatest nights of the year so far. Putting Diego Simeon monkey chops to the sword in a thoroughly enjoyable blood, guts and thunder match at Anfield. Personally, 2-0, I absolutely loved it. Austin, over to you.
Yeah, it was a great result. It's just we started off on the front foot, got the early goals. Should have been more, and I love a bet. Like, and I had fucking, I don't know, I had who scored first 3-0. Fucking it cost me fucking over 200 quid. So I was confident like that we were going to put them to the sword that night. Like, we played really well. I watched it in a restaurant back home, so it's not the same as being there, if you know what I mean. So
it was a superb performance, Matt, wasn't it? It was just bubbling from start to finish, and I'm going to pick out someone who I'm quite happy to deride. I like the guy a lot, but I'm quite happy to deride, and I think he's another one like Divock who's probably reaching the end of his career with us as well. But on that night in particular, and it'll probably show why he wasn't so good later on in a couple of games as well, I thought Ox had his best performance for a long time because it was a good old-fashioned English game of football. Madrid came out to kick the crap out of anything that moved. It was fast, it was furious, and Ox is a confidence player, in my opinion. And once he worked out that anybody on his side of the pitch he had the better of in a one-on-one situation, the boy was dancing everywhere. It was a real pleasure to watch. I thought he was great on that particular evening. I love seeing your compatriot, Manny, the snidey little whippet shit, Diego Jota, who I adore, who moans, creates, yet kicks like a bitch whenever anybody comes near him as well, and never ever gets caught for it as well. He's a proper little snidey shithouse. I absolutely adore him as well. Just a great performance.
For you, isn't it?
Just a great performance.
There's nothing we like better than to annoy the shit out of people.
Must be a Portuguese trait, Manny. I can't say
it is. Once I got when I got my passport and citizenship, they immediately, had me go into a training course to become a bigger shit. I was not shit enough when I got there. So we're gonna have to upskill you.
Is that what the booty tab was for?
James, tell us what the press said about Atletico mints.
It's funny, actually. I was going through my notes, and there was very little about it. We were so good. We made it look incredibly easy. Everything went right that night. Even to the fact that when they were clearly trying to wind up Mane, Klopp made a decision and made an early substitution and took him off.
That was a very un-Klopp-like decision, actually, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. None of his normal wait till 70 minutes when we're really in the mire and then finally doing it, make the move that we've seen for the last sort of 45 minutes. It was a brilliant performance, which is what is so frustrating about us currently, that we yo-yo between performances so dramatically. But brilliant on the night.
Oh, I thought superb on the night. It was lovely to see Big Joel. I was amazed that having the games that Matip is beginning to feature in as well. The Matip, Canate, Gomez, Bermuda triangle. One of them at the moment is Gomez, who's got in there and seemingly disappeared at this moment.
You wouldn't have thought that was a match built for Canate, right? Given how much you knew the game was going to get physical and how they like to kick you about, that maybe Matip's a little too delicate for that type of match.
I'm going to give you a little stat here. Did you know that of all the Atletico players, the person who had the least touches, unsurprisingly, was Felipe? That's basically because he got sent off. Right? Do you know who had the second least amount of touches for Atletico?
Suarez.
And two of those were taking kickoffs after the goal. He had a ridiculously low amount of touches, hardly involved in the game. If it was ever going to be a bad night, I still don't have much truck. It was interesting to see Anfield split between booing him and applauding him at the end of the game. But there was something that happened. Do any of you know this? After the game, that was captured by a very intrepid fan on their phone outside the ground.
Was that Harvey Elliott with Fernando Torres?
No, this was to do with Lewis.
Suarez and Dalglish.
Suarez and Dalglish was one, but the second one was someone got a shot with Louis on. He was stopping photographs. He's been a good guy. Someone got a shot with him, and one of the other people, while they were taking the photograph, concentrated, and he'd been in the club store and bought all his kids' Liverpool kits that were all poking out of the bag. Once a red, always a red at the end of the day, isn't it? Regardless of the result as well.
That's why I like him. He gets a lot of grief for his celebrating for Barcelona and being a schneidi cheat for Atletico. But that's what he's paid to do.
Exactly.
If he didn't do that,
that's what he was for us.
Yeah, exactly. He did it for us. He's going to do it for everyone else because
he
he's
has the same standards wherever he goes. He just wants to win, and he doesn't care how he's going to win. And it doesn't matter. The shirt he's got on is the one he represents at the time as well, isn't it? Even when he scored the disallowed goal, which was, in retrospect, in hindsight, absolutely fucking hilarious. I mean, it was great to hear the Klopp celebrate that as much as any of our actual goals that we scored. He didn't celebrate it. I know they were 2-0 down, and there's another reason for that. But he didn't celebrate it. He just turned around and ran back towards the halfway line while he waited for the inevitable. And it's funny watching footballers now actually dread that moment of scoring and then looking at the big purple screen. That they, oh God, I've got to wait here and see if it's actually going to count. And bizarre. It was nice to see that. No, I'm not going to go there. Kieran Trippier got to meet up with his family, James, after the game as well, didn't he? Which was quite nice. Yeah,
the caravan parked outside the ground, I think.
I did say I wasn't going to go there, but you were more than happy to. I really like it when we get to pay people that are clearly the bad guys. And Matt, if there's ever a chance to put in that David, that bit with, I can't remember his name, with a bit of are we the bad guys? This is actually, this is actually the time to do it.
Very well. They're coming. Now we'll see how these Russians deal with a crack SS division.
Hans?
Have courage, my friend.
Yeah. Hans, I've just noticed something.
These communists are all cowards.
Have you looked at our caps recently?
Our caps?
The badges on our caps. Have you looked at them?
What? No. A bit?
They've got skulls on them. Have you noticed that our caps have actually got little pictures of skulls on them?
I don't...
Hans, are we the baddies?
Let's see. We should be able to hold them at this point here, at least for a few hours.
Why skulls, though?
What?
Why skulls?
Well, maybe they're the skulls of our enemies.
Maybe. But is that how it comes across? I mean, it doesn't say next to the skull, you know, yeah, we killed him, but trust us, this guy was horrid.
Well, no, but...
I mean, what does skulls make you think of? Death, cannibals, beheading, pirates.
Pirates are fun.
I didn't say we weren't fun, but fun or not, pirates are still the baddies. I just can't think of anything good about a skull.
What about pure Aryan skull shape?
Even that is more usually depicted with the skin still on. Whereas the Allies...
No, you haven't been listening to Allied propaganda. Of course they're going to say we're the bad guys.
But they didn't get to design our uniforms. And their symbols are all, you know, quite nice. Stars, stripes, lions, sickles.
What's so good about a sickle?
Well, nothing. And obviously, if there's one thing we've learnt in the last 1,000 miles of retreat, is that Russian agriculture is in dire need of mechanisation.
Tell me about it.
But you've got to say, it's better than a skull. I mean, I really can't think of anything worse as a symbol than a skull.
A rat's anus?
Yeah, and if we were fighting an army marching under the banner of a rat's anus, I'd probably be a lot less worried, Hans.
Okay. So...
Honestly, I can't think of a more loathsome manager in world football. He's overtaken by sheer tenacity, and the fact that he's overtaken Mourinho as possibly the most loathsome manager in world football, at the moment, club manager in world football. God, I can't stand that man.
Yeah, I had posted in the.
But what if he
Facebook.
was? Sorry, what if he was your manager?
No,
Like our manager.
No.
Yeah, but what?
Because he plays he plays a dreadful style.
Matt, I can caveat that and I can defend that, right? I never once got behind Roy Hodgson as our manager. Not having it, right? Just not having it whatsoever. And two of these guys on the podcast can support that as well. If Jose Mourinho had ever come to Liverpool, not having it. Just not having it. There are certain people that you just can't countenance. Even Suarez is a push. I know that. I understand that as push. But when you're a manager, there's a different level of ethics, right? The not shaking hands, the performing for the cameras. Oh, my God, I wish someone would go and smack him in the face.
You know the hypocrisy of your statement, though. He's effectively the managerial version of Suarez.
Suarez is on the pitch trying to
like
win
literally.
football, not in charge of 11 players.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I agree with Andrew. It's more of a figurehead thing, right?
Yes.
I don't care if the guy working the Amazon warehouse is a bit of an asshole, but if Jeff Bezos is an asshole, it's a bit of a different story.
Exactly. Absolutely right. No, I can't.
Even in that match, I posted in the Facebook group. I was like, I said, "Man, this result is really disappointing." And they're like, "How could you say that?" And no, it was a thoroughly professional win. I just wanted it to be a lot more goals because I hate Simeone so much. I'm like, this is the match that needs to be 8-0. He needs to be humiliated, not just.
I'm totally.
I loved him in France '92 when he got Beckham sent off.
I think that's Austin Callahan, and he'll be leaving us right at this very moment.
Didn't you think he was weirdly subdued, though? I mean, like, for all we were brilliant, he seemed to give up after about 25 minutes and just stood on the sidelines looking for more. After
the second goal, James, he knew it was over, and I think he transmitted that to a lot of his players as well. the not shaking hands. He's just a petulant arsewipe, honestly. And to counter your argument, Matt, I didn't see Diego Simeone in the club shop buying Liverpool kits, so there's my argument to that one as well. I saw him in the toilet taking a Liverpool shit and then trying to dump it in the Liverpool dressing room afterwards. He's just from his playing career upwards. If Luis Suarez becomes a manager and manages against Liverpool, I'll have exactly the same rules if he behaves like that as well. It's just an awful. He promotes an awful way of playing football. It's just, as much as Mourinho, he's the antithesis of football for me, and I can't stand him. I hate him.
Was anybody shocked when I know that when the red card was given, a lot of the talk was, well, it's because he just simply ignored the ref, never came, it was disrespectful, and it was a yellow, and then he made it a straight red because of that. UEFA then came out and said, no, it's a red simply based on the foul. Now, yes, he does. I do believe he purposefully sticks his foot out to trip him, but you see that happen lots of times, and only a yellow is given. Anyone shocked that the ref gave a straight red just for
Mammy, that tackle, if you do it properly, is a leg breaker.
Yeah, he didn't just stick his leg out. He also raked down the back of his Achilles as well. If you see,
it's potentially a leg breaker if he didn't catch him properly, but it's potentially a leg breaker or fucking, you know what I mean?
There's also the word intent's gone out of the description in fouls because they finally worked out who can read the intent in a man's mind unless they're mad Uruguayan and have got buck teeth. Then it's fairly obvious. But the word intent's gone out, but the referees do look at someone, and I think they've replaced the word intent with cynical wanker. Because when you deliberately, as Matt says, he's getting away from me, I'm going to rake my studs down the back of his calf and his Achilles, that's a deliberate attempt to injure a fellow professional. It's a red card.
But I felt the rake down the back is something the official wouldn't have. I think the official sees the kick out. I don't know if from his angle does he see the rake down without going to the
If I'm honest, man,
there was a similar challenge, if you remember, back in the couple of seasons ago when we played Leicester. One of the Leicester players done a similar challenge, and it might have been Manny as well. I put him out for a couple of weeks. I never got a red card.
If I'm honest, Matt, I would say, to come back on your explanation, which I do totally agree with, by the way, as well, is that even if the referee was making his mind up, what am I going to give for this? It should be a red. I could give a yellow. It should be a red. It could be a red. Don't so. Fuck it. He's ignoring me. I'm going to send the fucker off. You can't blame him, can you? You absolutely can't blame him for the dissent.
No.
You can't blame him at all. I thought the referee handled that situation perfectly, really.
I think the BT guy, what's his name? Peter Walton? The BT dude?
The BT dude.
Yeah. He explained it quite well. I can't remember. Naturally, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he did explain it quite well as to why he probably, the reason why he said
I think if I recall correctly, he said essentially what we were saying. Kick out, and then there was the rake down the back. Both of those things combined is a straight red by the letter of the law, and that's why. I just don't know that the official would have seen that straight off without going to the monitor.
But don't forget he's on VAR as well, isn't he?
Yeah, it was VAR. I think it was VAR that in his ear that basically said that could be a red. Yeah. No, he didn't.
Listen, I've seen Jose Basingua give a karate kick into the back of Yossi Bene. No foul given. So, officials seeing things, is always a questionable thing.
Yeah, I mean, somehow Luke de Jong's karate kick into Xabi Alonso's chest got missed. But,
exactly.
I agree with Manny. I was very surprised. It looked like it was just going to be a yellow, but clearly the referee was better than I thought because he saw it in real time on the pitch. The guy managed to rake both of Mane's Achilles in one tackle.
One tackle, which is fair going, to be fair.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a good talent he's got, though. Simeone's clearly coached him well. Yeah. But, it's a red card, but it just didn't look like it in real time.
So if you look at the stats on this one, Manny, the Manny Pereira stats section, we had 73% possession, which is glorious. I give a point to anybody who can tell me how many shots on goal did Atletico have?
None.
Absolutely right. Not one shot on target.
None.
They called the Spurs.
Okay. Not one.
Amazing.
I want my prize.
Your prize is you get to spend an evening with Manny, and the runner-up prize.
A private lunch with me where I complain nonstop.
We made this is. I love this. I'm not a great one for stats, but I do love this one. We made 713 passes on the night.
Passes again,
right? How many did Atletico manage?
22.
Close. 263. I mean, it's as one-sided as.
I was going to say that.
I thought you would.
We spent away, so
it's as one-sided a set of statistics, and in some respects, it's one of those sets that I wouldn't actually mind getting framed, because it was really nice to, to get a little bit of revenge for having, their gloat last year on probably one of the worst games to ever happen because of what happened the day after Anfield in the tournament last year, when we put Adrian in goal and gave them the match, James, really, didn't we, in the previous season?
Yeah, and they gave us COVID. Hopefully we sent them back with herpes or something like that.
I think we sent them back with sore arses, if nothing. There you go.
Rabies.
So, from the joy that was Atletico Madrid to the London Stadium. And I've got a good mate, and it's not Matt, who's also a good mate, who's a West Ham fan. And believe it or not, Matt actually isn't a West Ham fan. I know some of you will find that hard to believe. And I said in the morning, quoting the famous line from Star Wars, I've got a really bad feeling about this. And I'm going to go with James on this, because James put a post on the Facebook page that I'm going to ask him if he can remember it to go with, because I think you summed it up, James, perfectly. Our attitude on the day.
Oh, that one. Right. Yeah. I mean, it at the time, I was ranting that our arrogance had finally caught up with us, that, it'll all come good in the end. Passy. This is why I get riled up with these passing stats, because they are bollocks. You can pass as much as you like, but you get your points for sticking it in the net. And, you can have 600 passes in a game, but if you're passing it from Van Dijk to Matip to Robertson, back to Van Dijk, into Henderson and back to Van Dijk, it's absolutely pointless. 5 minutes to go in that game, we're still passing it around. Now, I will caveat that with the fact that, yes, if you've got a formula of playing football and you stick to that formula, and 80% of the time it gives you results, great. But when you're watching this game and you think, just show a bit of urgency, just have a shot. And then the fact that it took Divock Origi to come on and have a shot and show everyone else on the pitch what they needed to do was absolutely infuriating.
Galling, to say the least, wasn't it?
Dreadful performance, absolutely dreadful. And it looks like Klopp, whereas I was praising him in the Atletico game for making a decision and taking off Mane, in the game, he stood there, he's picking players not based on form, because otherwise Tsimikas would have played, and he did nothing about it. Oh, it was a dreadful afternoon.
If you look at that game, I agree. I think Andy Robertson was shocking on the day, and I know he'd been given the G up of being the best left back in the world. He's not on form at the moment. Ox can't play one game without a rest, let alone three. He was a shadow of the player that played against Atletico Madrid. He just looked, the lack of fuel in the tank was evident. He was non-existent against West Ham. I thought Fab had a very poor performance. Sadly, someone who I don't really rate that much as a player. I think he's a very typically English, overhyped player. But Declan Rice looked head and shoulders above any of the three midfielders that we had out on show on that particular day, which is quite depressing. Obviously, losing Bobby, the form he's been in, which is not something we thought we'd be saying after last season, is going to prove to be a problem. I agree with James. Sadio was non-existent on the day as well.
Apart from when he existed to miss a really easy chance at the last minute.
Yeah, we can't really complain about Mo, but he's gone dry. That's 3 games now? 3 games without a goal, which is not unheard of, but happens. But let's look
Alisson,
at
Alisson hasn't scored in ages either.
Yeah, you should say Arsenal haven't scored in ages.
Alisson.
Say, don't talk about Arsenal. We've got them next, and that's now looking like a problem because on form, Manny, they're doing really well at the moment. And
that'll mean that's an automatic win. We might as well not bother turning up.
Exactly. But let's look at the before we get to the Holy Goalie, as Austin calls him. Let's have a look at Van Dijk and Matip, who on the day, Matt, I thought, you didn't see a lot of it. I know, sorry, I have to be honest. Matt got frustrated and gave up, didn't you?
Oh, I did. I went and made dinner, yeah.
So,
why'd you give up, though? The team's so good and they play so well and the formula will win out. And why would you stop watching it?
My question.
Why get frustrated? Why get frustrated with the side and stop watching it? You're so confident in the system and everything else.
I wasn't frustrated. I just knew we weren't going to win.
Yeah.
My question there. We were fantastic. Everything's good.
I honestly think that there are games. I think James hit the nail on there perfectly. That even before your goalkeeper acts like an absolute pansy from a corner, there are games that the moment they start, when you can look at it and go, not happening today, right? And from before it started, I just felt from before it started that we have at the moment a very, very soft underbelly and a tendency to especially after Atletico, it was a bit like there wasn't a lot of fight in Atletico. They were shit. But the two times we've been asked to really dig in and fight this season, we've now failed. Austin?
For me, I think we should have started especially with the set pieces. We knew they were going to bombard us with set pieces. Why not start with Kanate? He's 6 foot. He's a basketball player. I don't think we would have got messed around as much in the box if he had been on there.
I agree with that. I also think that he would have handled the pace of Antonio because Matip looked like he was running through soup at certain times in that game as well. For me, it was team selection. Like, you know, I would have started with Kanate. You know, Smith had a great game against Atletico. Why the heck? Because Robbo buzzes the love him. Like, he got up and down the first 3 or 4 minutes. We were on the front foot in the first 3 or 4 minutes, but Robbo got down the left hand side, and twice he was just putting balls in and home. Three times, Austin, and he did really well to get into the positions. But on that particular game, he had an unerring ability to, as they're taught, I've got no doubt, as they're taught, to put the ball into an area. But the 3 choices he made to put the ball into, there wasn't a fucking red shirt in any of that.
Exactly. I think the commentator on our feed kept saying, "Oh, that's a beautiful cross into an open area," but it's only open because no one's there, right? Like you have to put the ball to where the players are, and I feel like
you've got to put your hand up. You've got to put your hand up and look who you're passing to. Like, every time he's putting in, his head's down. He's just putting.
Yeah, but that's because that's coaching, isn't it? He's coaching, hit the area. It's not his job to worry about who's there. It's somebody else's job. And the person who probably would have been there would have been Bobby in that particular moment. So that's, you know, that's where effectively that went wrong. But I'm going to go.
I feel like delivery from his side is kind of died out, though. Like
I'm going to go.
He was challenging Trent in our league-winning season for assists from the fullback. I feel like that's kind of died out, where we're not getting production from his side as much as we are from the right, and I feel teams are taking advantage of that, easily letting the ball come down the left.
I'll come back to James. Right. Manny, on form, the difference between Thomas Tuchel and Jurgen Klopp is Thomas Tuchel doesn't care who the players are and picks the players on form. If I'm brutally honest, Tsimikas gets in over Robertson this season at the moment.
His crosses are deadly. I argue his crosses are better than Trent's.
No, never in a million years. Never.
Look at every corner he takes.
You had an argument and you were bottling it and you were doing really well and you put the label on the bottle, but just when it put the cork on, you fucked it and spilled it all over the floor, just right at the end there. Completely and utterly. It was all going so well with that particular argument, but then you just went off into the realms of fantasy land. James, I want to talk about the so-called elephant in the room, and we need to talk about Virgil because he was poor.
Yeah, I mean, Austin correctly said that he did make some great tackles. Well, 2 great tackles in the game. He made one on, is it Bowen?
Yeah. And one on Antonio where Matic couldn't get anywhere near him as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, that slide tackle was the reason that the West Ham fans were then soiling themselves for the rest of the game, claiming they were being unjustly done by and then giving ironic claps, even though the ref was clearly on their side for the entire game. And that one tackle where Matip returned to Matip of a couple of seasons ago and made a stupid decision to step into a tackle rather than running back.
Yeah.
Van Dijk has just lost 30% of his pace, which is understandable. He's coming back from a cruciate injury, but he's so far away from what he was. It's hard to watch. And yes, you only get better by playing, but it's a hard watch. It's a hard road, and he's a long way off.
He's got to be about 7. He's probably after Christmas, maybe 7-8 months of the season. Touch wood, he doesn't get injured, before he will be back to his best.
You're quite right, lads, because you've got 20 years of being a footballer where you've not had the injury. It takes its toll. It does take its toll, 20 years.
I think that's why there was that one break from Antonio where he doesn't even make an attempt to try to meet, he kind of just leaves it. And I don't know, is that a fear of not going to be fast enough, don't want to injure myself? It just seemed odd that he made zero play to try to close it down. He essentially was saying, go ahead, take a free shot on the keeper. I'm not going to stop you, right? It seemed like an odd choice.
Well, let's before we get into talking about some other bits about the game, what the fuck was Alisson on? I mean, he was magnificent against Atletico. Really was. He was excellent against Atletico away. He's been great in a load of the games that we've played in. Who was in goal?
He missed church. That's what it was. He missed church on Sunday because of the fucking game. He never got to shout the holy goalie stuff, So bad day at the Baptist church.
The bit I have trouble with, and obviously, who are we to question Jurgen Klopp? But that's our job because we're sat here. It's David Moyes' team. I've watched West Ham a little bit this season. Even in highlights, it's fairly obvious that West Ham go for set piece. West Ham have turned into Bolton. Effectively, it's like go for set pieces, knock it long, play on the counter attack, and kick the shit out of anything that moves. Now I know that, right? I know that. I knew what to expect when we went there, and I thought we'd lose. I really did think. Not thought, I feared we'd lose. I really thought they're on a bit of a roll at the moment. Carabao Cup putting out City on penalties, or at least, and they played City off the park that night as well, to be fair, a strong City side as well. I thought, this has got banana skin written all over it. And the moment that corner ended up in the back of the net, I can understand. If I'd have been at Matt's house, I'd have gone to help him make the gravy. It just never ever felt like we were going to get anything.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That was one of the most frustrating things about the game, was that we didn't learn at all. You could tell it was going to be a tough game before the game. It started off as a tough game, and we just carried on doing exactly the same things.
Never stepped up.
And the thing was, West Ham weren't that good.
Nah. West Ham was shocking, actually. West Ham were poor, really poor. I know you don't like the passing stats, James, but West Ham made 229 passes to our 700, which reinforces your view of passing statistics.
And 3 shots on goal.
Yeah. Now they had West Ham had 3 shots on goal. Every one of them went in.
That first corner, though, sets up that Kurt Zuma third, because we got so preoccupied with getting beat on the front post on that first corner that too much attention was paid to the front post, and nobody watched Zuma just skirt in around the back and just headed it. Like their plan, they worked that corner to perfection on both sides. They got in our heads one way and then went just the complete opposite way for the third one. And then Jared Bowen on the second. Why doesn't one of those midfielders take them down and take a yellow for that? Keep running.
That's been said loads of times this week, that the difference between us and Manchester City is someone in the Manchester City team would have happily, cynically taken the yellow. Quite, Milner had been
calling for James Milner, right? James Milner doesn't let him go by.
Yeah, we don't have too many like that. Matt, you're a junior football coach as well, right? And obviously you don't get that much chance at that level or need to scout the opposition and so on and so. But when the team you're playing, there are teams in your kids' division that you've played, and you know what they're going to play like when they turn up, don't you?
Yeah, mostly because they're like 14 years old, so they're of all varying sizes. But we played a team last week who were like all like grown men. They all needed to shave and had beards.
So you basically played a David Moyes team with your kids last week, because let's be honest, is there any of us sat here who thought, well, that came as a surprise, the way that West Ham have played this match today? Because
Nope.
it certainly fucking didn't for me whatsoever. And I'm staggered. That was my level of frustration. Why did you not fucking expect this to happen? Why are you all standing there? Which is why I went with you, your bit on the arrogance, James, of why are you all standing there going, what the fuck's going on here? This isn't supposed to happen.
That's why I said at the start, Canuti should have started at centre half. You know, a big presence in the box. Him and Van Dijk, you know, might have, who knows, might have made a difference. But Matip's, we're not the biggest defending aerial ball, unless it's delivered on Van Dijk's nog, you know, which they fucking worked on. Don't deliver it into Van Dijk because he'll clear it. They've avoided him. Canuti had been on there. Matip's not the biggest clear of fucking crosses and corners and all that. Like, if Canuti had been in there, see fucking, I reckon, the holy goalie getting hustled about, he'd have been on that. You know, fucking.
What bothers me, Austin, is now every corner is going to be stuck on Alisson.
Yeah, I mean, but look who was on Zuma. Like you said, it was Mane. And you look at that goal. Mane is marking Zuma, which is ridiculous to start with. He doesn't bother doing it, and then as Zuma heads it in, Mane does this ridiculous courtesy jump, like 10 feet away from him, like, oh, I've jumped in the air, boss. I'm not next to him, but I've done a little jump. You know, when we played Jota, who's, 4 foot tall, you know, maybe we should have played Origi from the start. And then Klopp's solution was to throw Minamino on to run around for a bit. It was just madness, absolute madness.
Yeah, it was a shame to see the Ox of Atletico Madrid, as I mentioned earlier, deteriorate into a shadow. He was just not there, probably the worst Liverpool player on the pitch, and that's going some with what was going on.
But
I think the stat was he gave the ball away 10 times in the start of the match.
One at a time, chaps, please. Go on.
None of them can hold themselves in high esteem after Sunday. Like, you know, Fabinho was crap, fucking Henderson was crap in the middle, like, you know, so maybe if they had been on the game on the day, Ox could have flourished, like, you know, but we just the midfield especially, like, let us down, I think, you know, because that's where we focus from, like, you know, that's where we run from, like, you know. As I say, we did start off in the first 4 minutes. It's like we were bombing down. Like,
Matt said, I'm going to pass the baton back to Matt here. We don't have a divine right, Matt, to beat teams that are on form and are currently in the top 4, do we?
No one does. Man City got beat by Palace.
Burnley.
And Palace.
Yeah, second bottom of the league, Burnley. You know, yeah, you know. Like,
here's a stat for you boys. We've played all the teams now in the top end.
Yeah.
All the teams now we meet are in the bottom end. So, on paper,
I'm going to give you a stat, Austin. Is we tend to do better against the teams in the top end of the table than we do against the teams at the bottom end of the table. Unfortunately,
that's only last season. We can change that.
I am, for once, quite thankful for a. I can't even say the words, international break, because if anybody needed an international break, I think it's probably us at the moment, because we look ragged. James, don't you think we look a bit worn?
Everyone looks exhausted. I mean, as you say, Henderson's not been in form, but he looks shattered. You know, really the only player in form now that Salah's gone off the boil is Trent. And even he was pretty poor defensively against West Ham. As much as we try and say, oh, all that media stuff about him not being a good defender is nonsense, he spent the entire match up in their half of the pitch, even when we were getting destroyed.
He played in the middle of the pitch.
Most of the game.
Yeah.
He played midfield most of the game. He was coming central.
Yeah.
Why that? I don't know. What was that? Was a
He'll
game
only
plan?
be doing, you have to remember, lads, he'll only be doing what he was told. There is something we haven't discussed about that game.
Cresswell.
And I know Cresswell's foot comes off the ball, but it's a fucking red card.
It's a red card.
It's a red
It's a
card.
red.
Isn't it? Matt?
Yeah. If you recall last season, oh, sorry,
Matt. Matt.
It is a red card. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. Manny?
That's the quote.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Matt. So where was I going? Last season, I forget who it was, but there was the defender who cleared the ball, and his follow through caught someone on the leg, right? And so if the argument is if you've touched the ball, it's not a red card, well, then that player clearly has played the ball away, and his follow through is what takes him into the player. So if that's a stonewall red. This is even worse because he doesn't really get the ball. He kind of touches it, his foot bubbles up and over it, and he's already going very high on the ball to begin with, right? He's not low to the ground. So it's dangerous play right from the off. And then he gets the player in the knee. So it's serious foul play. It's not a red.
Your studs are up. Both your legs are off the floor. You're out of control. The fact that you didn't contact the ball, you collided with the ball on your way to the player. It's absolutely no defence whatsoever. And I think
and he's sliding in with 2 feet.
Yeah, but Jamie Redknapp says it's too early in the game to send someone off.
No, that was that.
I hate that shit.
That's
up there with it's just my first. How can I get a yellow? It's my first.
Yeah, it's just you get some wonderful stuff from idiots, don't you?
You just have to look at Pogba. You have to look at the Pogba tackle against Keita in the Man United game, where no one debated that as a red card at all. And this was far worse.
Far worse.
We didn't even get a foul.
Wasn't even a foul.
I've got Dermot Gallagher here from. He's not here, thankfully.
Is he under the desk taking
He's
your
got
balls?
chained to the radiator again, is he, James?
But he was on Ref Watch, and if I can read his quote, he says, "I think I'm in the minority, but I don't think that's a red card. I don't think it's a red card because at the point of contact, I don't think he catches him like we saw Mason Holgate did. I think if the referee gives a free kick and a yellow card, I don't think it gets ramped up and thrown to VAR like it was. In isolation, I think that it should have been a yellow card." And then he goes on to say on the Holgate tackle, "I think it is a really bad tackle. He is high. He catches him with his studs in the back of the leg. I don't think the referee could have made any other decision than to go to the screen and have a look. I think the right decision was made. The difference with Cresswell is the point of contact." If you look at the Cresswell tackle, and I'll put a picture up, he's higher on Henderson's leg than Holgate was on whoever the spud was. It's ridiculous that decision was made, and that Paulson had such a terrible game, and he wasn't told to go and look at the VAR. And then Redknapp also said, "Oh, Henderson did him a favour by getting up." No, he got up after lying on the ground for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah, in agony. And Henderson does get up as well. Jordan Henderson does get up normally as well. There is just one other thing I want to discuss. Did anybody else, I mean, you might not have got this on your feed, Manny, but did anybody else think that, the appointment of Jack Wilshere to pundit has probably come just a little bit too early for his brain cells to cope with?
He had a nice jacket, though.
Somebody posted up, I don't know if it was one of you guys, but somebody posted up the comment. I posted something Wilshere. Actually, it wasn't Jamie Redknapp who said it's too early in the game. It was actually Jack Wilshere who said that. And somebody posted up who said, "I don't think this is his calling," afterwards, which is, honestly, I've heard some, they skip school, they don't finish their education. I've heard some thick footballers on the television, but Jesus, Jack, stealing a living, mate. Honestly, it was like watching a 5-year-old let loose trying to describe some of the decisions on there as well. It was obviously a very talented footballer, but I'd love to see.
Good job, Roy. Good job, Roy Keane wasn't there with them. He said, "Get the fuck home, boy."
He'd rip lapels right off that lovely check jacket. Yeah.
So that's our looking up at the previous 2 weeks in Liverpool, and I think you summed it up earlier, James. It's we're erratic, aren't we?
Yeah. I worry, and I hope it's not true. I don't really believe it's true, but I feel like we're slipping back into the Jamie Carragher years where we would win a game, lose a game, say we're going to learn the lessons from that loss, win the next game, get arrogant again, and then lose the next game.
That happened quite a lot.
Oh, I've got to pull rank there. Fuck, it's the first defeat in 25 games. So
yeah, but
I said we have been a bit erratic. We haven't got out of the second game, but it's early days in the campaign. We're still clocking up the points. We've had injuries to key players. We're still there.
Oh no! Fuck off! No, injuries to key players. That's bollocks. We're Liverpool. The right to reply here is 25 games unbeaten, but half of those were last season, so they're irrelevant. And we've taken 9 points from the last 18. That's terrible form. Terrible form.
That is mid-table, bottom mid-table form.
We walked our fucking Champions League fucking table. The group of death.
The Premier League.
No, the group of death and the Champions League.
Yeah, we did.
We won every game. We beat Athletic, the Spanish champions, on their own manner. It's early days.
Austin, I agree with everything you've said, but that just sums up what you're saying, agrees with the erratic nature. The team that went away to Atletico and the team that beat Atletico at home didn't look anything like the team that played against
just finding that consistency. And as I said, we've had players have been missing.
Austin, your argument's just gone from calling rank to agreeing with what James was saying.
I think that
I just agree with what you said. I don't agree with what James said.
I think there's definitely an issue with consistency, right? The side that absolutely Atletico Madrid game. How could they possibly be the side who lost the game to West Ham? I mean, it's so night and day difference.
Look back to Sunday. We were whisker off a post from winning for nothing.
Now, can I speak?
Getting the point.
Can I speak?
Oh.
All I'm saying is, in one match,
you're going to be sitting here saying
flip wrong, and there's leadership across the entire pitch.
Let me speak, Manny. Let me speak.
Our midfield was playing fantastic. Our defense was perfect. Making great saves, and then in the next match, our goalie can't make a save to save his life. Our midfield is nowhere to be found. Our strikers are not putting the ball in the back of the net, and so it's how do you reconcile those two teams? And if you're going to be that wildly inconsistent now, then that wild inconsistency is going to carry out throughout the rest of the season. I can go, well, the team who plays fantastic one day and awful the next day is going to be great for the rest of the season. I have to go, they're going to be consistent for the remainder of the season. They have to. There somehow needs to be some consistency in the form.
Run.
Oh my God!
I hope so. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. That's what I want to happen, but it's not going to happen the way we're playing.
It's like you've been. It's like you've been so spoilt by 97, 99, 100 and whatever points.
Right, and so Matt, did we not go? Did we not go 4 months? The home win.
Manny. Let him finish. It's a debate show.
Let us speak, Manny. Let us speak.
Two sides of a debate. Matt, carry on, please. And then
I'm just saying, it's like supporters, like the reaction of all of this after our first defeat of the season in the league is just. It's like you've been so spoilt by these huge, ridiculous point totals over the last sort of 3-4 years. Or 2-3 years, and the fact we won the title as well. And it's like you've got every single game has to be perfect. If you look back over the last, 20 odd years, which will give you a good statistical range if you really want to go down the stats, it's like those 3 seasons are anomalies, like complete anomalies.
All right.
That's what you're expecting. You're expecting perfection every single game.
Manny, over to you.
So go to our podcast last year where you were giving me the same exact song and dance that everything was going to be fine. And then we went 4 months without a home win. And all I'm saying is calling attention to where I think there are gaps. And you're saying, hey, it can't all be roses. We're going to win the league. Do you want to win the league or do you not want to win the league? Do you simply just want to watch them play? Then sure, who cares? Draw, win, lose, who gives a shit? It'll all even out at the end of the season. I'd like to see them win the league. And in order to do so, they need to be more consistent. That's all I'm saying.
It's really weird, right? Because
I just hope we don't beat Arsenal 7-0 in the next game.
Austin,
I'll be over the moon.
Austin, it's James. It's a bit like watching mum and dad fight when you can see arguments on both sides, isn't it, in this as well? Because I totally agree with what Matt said, but Manny makes such a compelling argument as well that you have to agree with it. I think that in a nutshell is where we are. So let's just discuss the what causes that problem.
I'm fine to argue. I just don't want to see them making up afterwards. That's
exactly. The make-up sex will be violent.
I'm going to give a big sloppy wet kiss to Matt when this is all done.
The issues for me, the team, and it's not something I've thought about much this season prior to him going. It's not getting rid of Gini Wijnaldum, and it's not replacing Gini Wijnaldum. It's not having another experienced body in the midfield, because both you guys on either side of the argument have said our defenders couldn't defend for crap. Forget the goalkeeper aspect, and our strikers couldn't score, blah blah blah, against West Ham. Well, that's because we didn't have a midfield. We had nothing in the centre of the pitch. We offered nothing. Now, whether Henderson was cropped from the red card that wasn't given, Fabinho, Fab was so off the pace. It was farcical. And as I said, Ox just looked like someone that had been stuck out there with a quarter tank of petrol, and that burned up very, very quickly. We offered nothing. And there's nothing to come off the bench at the moment to support that as well, because we have a lot of niggling injuries. Thiago looks shit at the moment whenever he's come back on the pitch.
First game back, fucking hell, don't bust the boys' balls. You know
whoa. Second appearance off the bench. And the first thing he's done, Austin, in the first
he gave the ball away, yeah. You know, he was placid with the ball. He gave it away a couple of times too easily. But don't diss my man.
He was fucking shit. There you go. Is that a bit?
And it wasn't a couple. It was like 5 errant passes right after the substitution. He came up.
The point I'm getting round to is, I think something James made earlier. When we want to win a game from that position, a ball retentive midfielder is perhaps not the way we should be looking to go.
But we were giving the ball away, and he didn't back up here. He came on, he retained the ball. What did he do? He gave it away. So
was it Brighton he gave it away to, where they broke away and nearly scored, James?
Yeah.
He dallied on the ball.
I mean, I disagree, because I think Gini was a ball retaining midfielder, and I think that's what we lack is the ability to give.
Gini was a ball winning midfielder, that not just a ball retaining midfielder. Gini broke up. The thing that we're missing is you had Fab that protected the back four. Well, we've still got Fab. He had an off day at the office. Can happen to anybody, right? It can happen to anybody. But what Gini did was break up. Now, you either break the game up by winning the ball and getting your toe in and breaking it up, or you break the game up by blocking off the available pass. And his off-the-ball work that Wijnaldum did was amazing. It was amazing. That was the main reason that people were queuing up to take him. His off-the-ball work. The other advantages of Gini Wijnaldum was always fit, always reliable, always available, 7 out of 10 every game.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're entirely right. My chief memory of him was his ability to turn and find the out ball, which is what we lack. We've got a bunch of midfielders now who want to play the pass immediately every single time. So we're constantly running forwards, running back, and giving the ball away, trying to find a killer pass, which Thiago does as well. You saw it with Mane. He could have played a 5-yard simple pass, and he overhit it, and it just wasted possession. And Jones, as much as we want him to be the Gini replacement, and as much as he is clearly a player with huge potential, he wants to play that killer pass as well. You need that player who can put his foot on the ball and hold off people and let other people get into positions to receive passes. So we are missing that senior midfielder.
Yeah, I know.
I think if Gini had been on the pitch on Sunday, we wouldn't have conceded that second one.
Yeah.
Matt's a bit incredulous about some of this. Go on, Matt.
What's that? Sorry.
You were a bit incredulous when I was talking about Gini. I don't necessarily think we kept him. I don't necessarily personally. I don't think we should have kept him. But I think our failure to replace him you can't predict injuries, and we don't know whether. I mean, Harvey Elliott looked like he was nailed on to play most of the games in Jurgen's eyes as well, right? But have we not learned from the previous season? Like, we went out and bought a centre half that we ended up giving away, who never got a game for us in Ben Davis.
Yeah, but we had. I mean, hindsight's wonderful, but we had how many? Like 9 or 10. We had a ridiculous amount of.
We didn't have that much. If we didn't, we had hindsight's wonderful. Let's go through them. James Milner, 30, 35, 36.
Hang on, people a minute ago were saying, "No, we could have done with the James Milner."
No, we could, but let me get my point. That's not the point I'm making. 35, 36, picks up a lot of niggling muscle injuries. Jordan Henderson hasn't played more than 70% of games in the last 3 seasons. Thiago, fucking made of crisps. Naby Keita, fucking made of crisps. Right? You look around it. Curtis Jones, probably reliable, but as James quite rightly said, young and learning his trade. Fab, up until the last couple of bits, Mr. Reliable. That's a fairly... And Oxlade-Chamberlain, made of crisps. But that's fairly threadbare, isn't it? You've got, one player in there, in Fabinho, that you can pretty much expect to finish most of the season, possibly 2 in Jones, and Jones has bucked the trend. So that's an awful lot of people not getting minutes or not giving us enough minutes throughout the season. And that will come back to bite you in the arse. I think the engine room is crocked. Hopefully the international break will give a chance for some of the more niggling ones to clear up. At least England won't be able to ruin Curtis Jones this time out after they did last time.
I think the one... To say, if there was one thing that I think has happened positively since Ginny has left, I think it's opened us up our attack a bit more. I think we've seen an increase in goals without him in the midfield, mainly because the way Klopp uses him is to slow the game down to prevent the other team from coming back. And I think we will score more goals, but there will be games where our midfield will be overrun. And it's kind of, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. What are you willing to trade for that? I think, to your point, Andrew, our midfield doesn't have people who are consistently healthy. So maybe in January we need to get someone. My only fear is Newcastle has more money than God now and are gonna, they're gonna destroy the balance of what a player is worth, right? I fear any player we go for, they may just say we'll pay double, right? And
any
completely skew.
Any sensible footballer that's not Emmanuel Adebayor, right, will not go to Newcastle at this particular moment. No one. I stand by the point I made yesterday.
They're about a season or 2 down the line before they even
think
about it.
No one wants to be the first Newcastle United manager. Everybody wants to be the second Newcastle United manager.
Unless your name's Eddie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
they'll find their Robinho.
Yeah, exactly. Who's going to be their Robinho? They are. If you were. Unless you were going there for a massive payday, which happens, it's fair enough, you're going to look at that club and think, it's a bit of a fucking mess at the moment. Give it a couple of years and they've got the money and I might fancy it. It has all the hallmarks of, it wasn't that long ago. To be fair, Chelsea didn't get it that wrong when they did it, but City got it wrong. City, but the difference is, Austin, isn't it? Is they can having the money to be able to afford to make the mistakes. That's the difference, isn't it?
Exactly. Was it Pellegrino in first?
Was it?
No,
Mancini. No,
Mancini was first. Yeah.
Hughes.
Pellegrino was before him. Was he not? No.
Pellegrino followed him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For the try to win the Champions League. But Mancini came in. He done a deal. But there's no one going to the Northeast anytime soon. Until they've done. They've been through Eddie Howe. I think he did a good job there. He'll steady the ship for them. Probably keep them up. And probably get them around about the top 8 places, between 8 and 6th, whatever, but
what about?
He'll
But
give them actual
who knows?
instructions as
Who
opposed
knows
to
what
I
he'll
think
do?
they'll finish 14th or below. James, do you agree?
Yeah,
Who knows what he'll do with a few quid behind him as well? They didn't have had a Bournemouth, you know.
Well,
But
not enough games after January to change around the position they'll be in.
not this season, like, but going forward, like. But Manny was alluding like, oh, fucking night. But Newcastle, I wouldn't worry about Newcastle, but
I'm not about
2 or 3
Newcastle.
seasons.
I would worry about people like, I mean, you know, we jokingly went on about who we should be beating. We should be beating Brighton and so on. And I agree with all of those things. I mean, we're Liverpool at the end of the day. But do you want to know how bad the situation is, lads? Who have we got next?
Arsenal.
How many points? How many points are we in front of Arsenal? Anyone know?
1 point? No?
2.
2.
So
Yeah.
Arsenal, who were subject of derision, ridicule,
5th from bottom at one stage.
you know, we're 2 points above Arsenal. You know, it's a close pack. So there's a lot to be said for some of Manny's arguments. There's also a lot to be said for Matt's, but it comes back to we're caught in the two stools between it. You know, we are walking a tightrope between becoming as James said, a Jamie Carragher, Harlem Globetrotters 11, or serious contenders. Chelsea have got a 4-point lead at the moment. It's not insurmountable. As Austin said, you look at the other factors, is we've played everybody in the top 6. Not many others have.
Everyone on the top half.
I've got to do it. We've played everybody in the top 6 and Manchester United. Okay, international break. Arsenal coming up. I suppose we're in a reasonably robust state of health, given the situation and everything we've discussed so far. Are we? I will be totally honest. I share some of Manny's concerns. A few murmurings of discontent brewing. Watching Liverpool West Ham is the first time, not even last season, because I could understand the circumstances. But watching Liverpool West Ham is the first time in a long time I started to want to throw things at the television set. How do you feel we are and where we are? Matt, let's go to you. You're the beacon of eternal optimism.
We're what, 10? How many games are we in now? 10, 11?
11.
We're 11 games into a 38-game season, and we've lost 1 game, and we're 3rd in the table, 4th in the table, and it doesn't really matter where we
And
are.
we've played everybody in the top half.
We've played everybody in the top half. We're actually through to the quarterfinals of the Coca-Cola or Carabao.
Milk Cup. It's always
Milk Cup. Yeah, like your style. Like your style, Moose.
It always has to be known as the Milk Cup. Yeah, and we're through to the knockout stages of the Champions. Keep going, Matt. I'm liking
Through to the knockout stages of the Champions League. We've got Jurgen Klopp as our manager. We've got a great squad, and the 2 lovely ladies are still working behind the canteen. So all is good.
Austin.
Yeah, agree with Matt, 100%. We always beat Arsenal at Anfield now, 100% confident. Like, West Ham, kick up the arse that we needed. I think the players seen that from the reactions after the game and all that. Like, I think it's right time of the season. Had it been back end of the season, could have been worried. But I think, yeah, coming up now, Arsenal, we've got Southampton at home. We can kick on now. We've got the so-called lesser teams, but as we say, there's no easy game in the Prem. But
cliche. Right, bingo. Cliche bingo. Who had there's no easy games? Who had there's no easy games? It's followed up by we're taking each game. Before we before I go on to James, it's just that don't you love the excuses that come out, James, of well, getting that monkey off the back about losing that unbeaten thing. I'm glad that's out of the way now. Fuck off, whoever says that, basically, as well.
Yeah.
Right? You know, like,
I'd rather have that monkey for the next 10 years than get it off our back.
James, where's the club at, in your opinion, this season?
I think the next 2 games are going to really tell. You know, if we beat Arsenal, great. But if we then lose to Southampton or draw, then it's just I think that is a marker for our season. That, you know, we're going to be inconsistent and we're going to finish top 4, and that's all we can hope for. Hopefully we'll win both games, and then we'll smash the Blues in the derby, which is the one after that, and happy days. I really feel the next 2 games are the testers.
Can I just add as well? I never finished. We're going to go to Russia with love as well and win the Champions League.
Okay, let's finish on a high. Manny.
Actually, I was going to say I love facing Arsenal. I feel like we've had their number as of late. They usually don't put up much of a challenge against us. Yes, they're on a bit of a run, but they haven't really impressed too much, right? They're winning 1-0. They're playing, some lower level sides, what I would call in the league. So I think we'll beat them at home. And much like James says, I think I kind of just see that as that's going to be a win. From there on out, it's putting together a string of wins, and not an undefeated run where you win, you draw, you win, because the draw is still 2 points dropped, right? You're probably better off winning 3 and losing 1 than you are winning 2 and drawing 2, right?
I heard it
just for the momentum.
I heard it said by the genius that is Joe Cole, because points wise, a draw is closer to a defeat than it is a victory.
Well, you can't argue with facts. But like James said, you need to see a consistent run. And I think if you don't see the consistent run, then it's the best we're going to hope for is top 4. I think the other teams will start to run away with the league simply because of their depth and squad.
What happened this season?
Fucking hell, if you can call a season based on 11 games, fuck me.
Can I call
what
this
game
based on
have you
11
been
games?
watching?
Well, clearly you're not paying attention to this podcast, because when you're asked a question, you don't know where we are in the story. So what I said is it depends on what our next few games are. And if we fail to show consistency, then we haven't shown consistency in the first 11. And if we don't show consistency in the next 5, then I don't see how we win the league if we don't put together a string
I'm
of runs.
going to disagree with you, because I don't think we've shown consistency in the last 3 games. That's all. I don't have any problem.
It's not going to be a 100-point season. 80, maybe 85 points could win the season this year.
Yep.
I think 9 points from 18 is a worrying trend.
Yeah, I go with that totally, James. That's the bit that worries me. That's a marker that we're on the crest of a dip at the moment, aren't we? Rather than the crest of a wave, rather than
we could get 27 from 27 up until Christmas.
Yeah,
There's 81 points left to play for.
Yeah,
exactly. I go back to my point that the 2 games.
I don't think anyone's disagreed with anybody here.
And Austin, if my auntie had balls, she'd be gender neutral and using the men's toilets at the moment, wouldn't she?
Football boots.
Yeah, exactly. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've had a little break away, but look at it. We've come back. We've battered our way from Preston in the Carabao Cup to getting smashed by West Ham. We didn't forget. We failed to mention that we actually finished that 3-2. And that. And it was a smash and grab at home from West Ham, but we still lost at the end of the day. This has been Pass&Move, a 365 radio production. I've been Moose. Everybody out there has been wonderful. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Austin.
Wembley.
Famous Man United. Oops.
Thank you very much, James.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Manny. We'll see you on the other side. I've been Moose. You've all been Pass&Move. Thank you very much, and good night.
Cheers, everyone.
No.
Cheers, everybody. Good night.
O relógio já passou dos 49 prometidos pelo árbitro. Cai a chuva. Que tensão. Cobrança de escanteio. Alisson! Alisson! Gol! Alisson! É do Liverpool! Histórico, heróico! O goleiro brasileiro vai pra dentro da área e resolve como atacante! Ha ha ha!